Joining us to discuss the ramifications of the Trump administration's foreign aid cuts and the wide-ranging impact on Catholic social welfare programs, we are joined by Carolyn Woo. She is the former president and CEO of Catholic Relief Services. Before her retirement, she led CRS from 2012 to 2016. Carolyn, you have deep knowledge of the work Catholic Relief Services does around the globe. Help our viewers understand the significance of these program cuts.
Absolutely. So first of all, Catholic Relief Services was started in 1943. We are over 80 years old in terms of serving the most vulnerable people. Today, CRS works in about 120 of the poorest countries and serve over 130 million people. So just taking those numbers and the magnitude of that scope. We work with 2,000 partners around the world, and many of those are dioceses and parishes around the world. So when we say we're a global church working together, we really are. CR's work is in two types of intervention. First is emergency reliefs. So anytime when you have natural disasters or man-made disasters such as wars, CRS is there as a first responder. We are there with food, shelter needs, medicine, sanitation, and the most fundamental needs that help people flourishing. And we're there too nowadays in different places because of the refugee dislocation. There are people who are in different countries, they need help. In addition to emergency, we also do long-term development, which is to help people move away from poverty by building up their own country assets, whether it is in agriculture or production, whether it is increasing people's education or their health, or building up organizations so that people could really achieve much better life from that. So this is the scope of CRS work, and it is quite comprehensive. In the end, beyond emergency, we deal with health, health of infants, children, mothers, and grown people too. We deal with diseases, whether it is malaria or even Ebola. We deal with those. We deal with malnutrition when people don't have enough to eat. We deal with agricultural success because of the temperature changes and the climate patterns. So many soils and so on are depleted, or rainfall patterns cannot be counted on. And those affect many people, hundreds of millions of people in the world. So how do we help them in some ways to adjust to the new conditions? We also deal with education, for example, of young people, because education is the path up. So our work also deals with water and sanitation, and also justice and peace building.
Yes, and thank you so much for what you've done. The mission of CRS, and you mentioned this, is to serve the poorest and most vulnerable. In 2023, it worked in 120 countries, serving 200 million people. Americans who voted for Donald Trump largely said they supported America First. How does the work of CRS square with an American First agenda?
Absolutely. Actually, international aid was started at first for the benefit of the US, even though the aid goes overseas for two major reasons. One is security of the US, the other is prosperity. So on the first item of security, what we're trying to do is that when countries are successful, they tend to be more stable, and we don't deal with the same degree of terrorism or unrest. And sometimes the US becomes a target when you have problems in different countries, when you have failed countries and so on. So security is achieved when countries are working well. There are not as many sort of incidences of conflicts or terrorism. In addition to that, it also allows us to have understanding and intelligence from that area. And most important is friendship and goodwill. That's what we're trying to build. So that's a security dimension. The other dimension is about prosperity. Look, most of the growth that we're going to see in the world is coming from outside of the United States. It's really in a lot of these developing countries. They have both population growth and economic growth. those will become very important markets for the United States, not only for export, but there are very precious minerals, materials, food, and so on that would allow us to expand, production. So for the US, in terms of both security and in terms of growth and economic prosperity, it benefits the US as well as the other people. And I think is sometimes we have to be careful. We say, oh, we would give it to the other people. Uh, we then have less for the US. This is a zero sum type of mentality. But actually, it doesn't happen that way. When we invest in these other countries, we're actually investing in the base that allows all of us to grow. If you think about, the precious minerals and precious food products and so on that becomes available, we are all better off for that. And so we have to look at sort of the opportunities that the investment in other countries bring Americans. But I have to say, for Americans, we've had such a strong and respected tradition of helping other people. We are in the Lenten season right now. We are a Christian country. And the whole idea is what we do is really to honor uh, what God tells us to do, and that is to build the dignity and the sacredness of all people. That's what we're doing. And with all the resources we have, if we don't live that message, who should live that message? But that is exactly the message of the gospel.
Right. And Carolyn, we only have a minute left here. If you were directly addressing President Trump, Elon Musk, and Marco Rubio, what would be your message to them about why they should restore funding to USAID and, by extension, Catholic Relief Services?
Well, I would just make it very simple. It's the best investment you could make in the United States in terms of security, in terms of prosperity, but most important in terms of trust. And trust is a very important capital that we don't have, then we can't really do the work as well.
Carolyn, we really appreciate you sharing your insight and expertise. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much. Same to you.